So last but not least, why NCU? Why study speech communication at NCU when you can study it at any one of a half dozen different schools across Oregon and several dozen schools across the United States? Well, the first thing I would say is I have absolutely no interest in driving up the number of majors in the speech communication program. That's not my purpose at all. It's just that there are some people who get fairly far into their education and only then do they find out what speech communication is, and they say, if only I had known, this would be perfect for me, but I'm too far into another program. So all this is for is to arm you with information. In fact, I don't want anybody in my program who's not a good fit. God is going to bring the people for whom He's arranged their steps to the program, but if you know what's happening, then it makes it easier for you to go along with God's leading, and that's my only purpose in making these videos. So I would say the first thing is, why speech communication at NCU? The first step should be because you decide that NCU is the right fit for you, and my hope is that you've talked to some of our admissions counselors and they've talked with you about what kinds of students thrive here. Because we do get a fair number of students who come here and it is not what they were looking for, and they're not a good fit, and they don't put down roots here, and they wind up going someplace else, and they go with our blessings and our prayers behind them. But if you've checked out the school, and it does seem like the kind of community we have here, and the kind of scale that we have here, and the kinds of traditions that we have here, that this is a place where you'd fit well, and you feel that God is working things out and opening the way for you to come here, then the next question becomes, why speech communication at NCU? And I would say that there are two reasons. The first reason is because speech communication is so deeply woven into the roots of the school. Northwest Christian was founded in 1895, and its name at that time was Eugene Bible College, and there was one thing that you studied. You studied the Bible. And when you left, it was with the assumption that you were going to pursue one career. You were going to be a preacher. Well, 4 years later, in 1899, they opened up the second major at Eugene Bible College, the School of Oratory. And one of the co-founders of the school, David Kellums, was the first head of the School of Oratory. And oratory is one of the more old-fashioned words for the study of public address. So one of my unofficial mottos for the speech communication program at NCU is that we are in our third century of excellence. 19th century, 20th century, and now into the 21st. And another thing I take pride in is most speech communication professors across the United States trace the modern field back to developments in the 1920s, which is when a lot of colleges for the first time had a department of speech. We predate them by over 20 years, so we were a generation ahead of the game. Now that's not just something that goes back to our founding, that's something that's been important to the school all along. I could name off some of the people who've been the speech communication professors here. The names wouldn't mean anything to you, but if you were to make your way around Oregon and talk to a lot of the Northwest Christian alums who've gone on to successful careers and gone on to be very influential, gone on to be pastors in a lot of churches, you would find that they would mention their speech communication professors. In the video I made about the options for going pre-med with speech communication, I mentioned Lee Lane, and Lee Lane taught here for a full career, and people still get a little bit breathless and a little bit quiet when they talk about the experience they had in his class. One of our trustees, Senator Morse, who's a state senator, and the Morse Special Events Center, our athletic facility, is named after his family because they provided the funding to build it. He was addressing our trustees a year or two ago, and he said that you've always been able to tell a graduate of Northwest Christian when they get on their feet and start to talk, because they have confidence and they have a polish and they have an effectiveness when they speak that sets them apart from the graduates of other schools. That's an ongoing tradition, a tradition I feel very strongly about continuing, and if it feels to you like it would be exciting, like it would somehow awaken your purpose for you to be part of that tradition as well, then that might explain why speech communication at Northwest Christian. Now the other reason, I think, that reason obviously has a lot to do with the public speaking track, but as for the interpersonal communication track, there are enormous benefits to being at a small school because it is such a wonderful laboratory for you to take the things that you're learning in the classroom and to see them applied in real-life situations. On a larger college campus where there are thousands of students, you walk around the campus, you see a lot of faces, you make your own circle of friends, and that's pretty much who you interact with. But Northwest Christian is more like a small town. Just about everybody knows just about everybody else, and you have all sorts of opportunities to observe observe and to participate in the beginning, the development, and sometimes the maturity and termination of relationships. You get to see patterns of nonverbals. You get to see how they change over the years. You'll study uncertainty reduction, and then you can interview to be an orientation leader, and when a new class of freshmen come in, you can see uncertainty reduction in action as they try to figure out how to throw off their shyness and how to break the ice and be very real with one another. So, both in the heritage that speech communication has here at Northwest Christian and in the opportunities every day for you to live in a petri dish where what's going on in your textbooks could be going on right before your eyes, I think those are two considerations that make it kind of a unique opportunity to study speech communication at this school.